Good evening, everybody, and welcome into a Monday edition of course, as it's known these days in the offseason, the Monday Smash, presented by State Farm agent Russ Vorhis, russvorhis.com. For more information, we'll talk about Russ in just a minute, alongside the senior recruiting analyst for Warchant.com. His name is Michael Langston, and he's recovering from an extremely busy weekend. We're going to be talking lots of recruiting tonight here over the next hour. Michael, how's it going? Get some rest, some recuperation. How's the post-visit intel, all that stuff going for you?
It's going good. It's going good. It's good to get a night of sleep. It's been a crazy week. A lot of midweek visits, a lot of obviously the big official visit weekend with 19 official visitors. So a lot of stuff to cover, but overall it was good. I was pretty pleased as the wording I got from the weekend of how FSU felt. Even the day after coming out of that weekend, they felt really strong about what impact they made on these certain recruitments that we feel decisions are coming up in the near future.
So we will start with one commitment here that Florida State got actually yesterday, the announcement officially today, and we'll touch
Hmm.
on. There's a full reaction video available right now on Warchant TV that we will direct you to towards the end of the program. Before we do that, though, Russ Vorhis, one of the OGs here at Warchant.com, Warchant TV, supporting what we've done since the staff was completely different. Michael, maybe you were probably there with Gene at the time, but a lot of new faces have come along over the years. I've known Russ before coming to Warchant. He is a Nole through and through, supports the programs in every facet that he possibly can. This dude is ride or die Florida State, and he serves you in the full state of Florida, Alabama, Georgia. If you live in any of those three states, State Farm agent Russ Vorhis, a Nole, can help you out. For more information on how to get in touch with Russ, if you're listening on the podcast, here's his name, RussVorhis.com. You go to that website, and you'll be able to get in contact with Russ today. So, Michael, again, as we talked about yesterday, entering the weekend, the recruiting prediction machine at On3 suggested that four-star Kevin Wynn, Georgia, was a fairly decent likelihood. In fact, I looked at the history. It had taken over that RPM for Wynn. Here's that dated information back in May. So about
Hmm.
6-7 weeks of Georgia being in the lead, at least according to our RPM. And that changed in a big way yesterday into last night as word got around that he'd be choosing Florida State. What did the Noles land in this particular defensive lineman?
A great explosive hand type of guy, a pass rusher. You can see just you guys, if you've seen our videos and our breakdowns of him, I mean, he has got bad intentions when he gets there, and he gets there quick. Really physical guy, but also I like the way he gets off the pass rush. I mean, he's so physical off the pass rush, and that's, I mean, he's kind of an Odell guy. Have you seen over the years of the guys he's got, like Derek Nanati and Goat Robert Cooper and all these guys that had certainly productive careers? I think Kevin fits into that mold where the way he gets off the line is kind of that Odell type of guy. He's a hip explosion, really jumps out at you, and just the way he closes on play. It's just some guys got 1-2, and this guy's got heavy 1-2. When you watch him play and watch him, you dissect the film. It isn't just the hands; it's just the footwork, the way he gets off, and just explodes to the tackle. Finishes the play. It's almost, I mean, I don't know what his tackles for losses were, but it had to be very high. And I know this is one that FSU coveted heavily. This is one where I felt like early in January, Tom, this was like trending really good for FSU. They really set the tone early. He came to FSU about 2 or 3 times, and then Georgia came in there and tried to push, and we'd heard like, hey, could be 50-50 now, and then FSU closed the door on Sunday and Saturday, and I guess even Friday. When he took that official, I think a lot of times that's why you do the set the tone thing in January, to kind of have make them know like, hey, we've been there from the start. And I think too, from a development standpoint, I don't think you're going to get any better than the guy they have there in Odo Higgins, and I think he just fell in love with that. Obviously, development too. I think his ability, the way Odell looks at his players. It's not just, hey, do this on the field and stuff. There's a culture standpoint of what FSU does that resonates to a lot of guys and has that winning attitude. And I think Kevin fit all of those things, and then it just all connected this weekend. And it's an interesting way as far as Sunday, as far as how we came about of getting the story. Matt was over there, and it just the conversation led to, hey, I committed. Yeah, so committed. Then certainly I did the thing with Tom and the blazing heat of my car. But yeah, you guys, I'll do it. I don't care. But got that done, and I think there should be a lot of excitement, as I said on Sunday, Tom, of adding a player at a position that is the most coveted position for FSU in this 2025 cycle. It's the one thing, if I was saying, like, if there was a guy you wanted to get a top tier guy like Myron Charles or Kevin Wynn. Today it's Kevin Wynn. Myron Charles is possibly one that I think they'll land later. But overall, this was if you're going to get a first pickup since January, I think this is the main guy that I would circle and say, hey, that's the guy you want to start with.
We're going to get to some big picture questions here. I'm going to ask Michael some questions over the next 20 minutes or so. Matt LaSerre, who also was covering this intensely busy weekend. We had a lot of people out there in Tallahassee. I'm at Warchant North, the headquarters way up north. So I'm just putting videos up and such and so forth. But Michael was out there all weekend long. So was Matt. So was Director Ben Spicer's behind the scenes. We even got a young and up-and-coming intern that you might be hearing from here in the future also helping out this weekend. But we'll get all insights, coverage of what happened top to bottom. And your questions for Michael will be coming up in about 10 minutes. But first, thank you to Buffalo Tom Ortner for the contribution. This is a little off topic, but I'm going to do my best, Michael. Oh, and I see another one has hopped in. So I appreciate the folks for the contributions. Does FSU announce their departure from the ACC before July 1st? Tell the truth. Well, we always do.
Like the ad to the end, like, tell the truth.
Well, here's the thing. I will tell the truth. I don't know of anything coming before July the 1st. I'd be surprised if they did so. I would be. You've got until August. I believe it's August the 15th if it's like last year, Michael. I would be surprised if that announcement came that soon. Let me spin it a certain way and make it a recruiting question. Yeah. How big of a deal would that be on the trail for Florida State if they announced in the next week, considering there are big decisions coming around July 4th and this upcoming month, Michael?
You segued before I could even add in. I was going to add in. Tom kind of reads me like a book. We kind of feed off each other, but I think it'd be massive. I don't care if it's the Big Ten or the SEC. Obviously, the biggest boom would be the SEC because that's the mothership. That's the one that stirs the Kool-Aid, and that's the one that I think generates the most because of geographically it fits FSU. And two, there's so many guys. Majority of the kids they recruit are from the South. There's some that are different parts of the country, but it would have a massive effect. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, Ohio State landed, Zion Grady today, a 4-star defense end who FSU I felt like led for before that visit. If they're in one of those leagues, I think they land that kid. But that's just the dynamics they face. I mean, kids that are going to FSU right now, I think, are believing on what the product is and what FSU's doing. It's not something that the ACC's doing. I mean, all this is all FSU of what the product is and how they feel about the product. So they're doing a great job of what they have on their product. But man, if you're in the right league, that could really give them a big benefit. And that's really, I think, to a degree. I don't think it's like factor in every kid's decision, but I definitely think it would give them a big boom to be in a league that's a power league.
So here's a follow-up question. We'll stay on the conference topic as it relates to recruiting, Michael. J. Brown Fishing, my everyday has some type of Warchant playing. Well, thank you very much. We're honored. We're here because folks like you do that. So thank you very much. Question, though, what conference do you think Norvell would want to go to? And do we really want to be in the company of the clown fan bases in the SEC? Editorializing aside, Michael, what do you think would benefit this coaching staff more? And if they had their pick, just based upon what you're hearing, do you think that they would choose the SEC for regionality over the Big Ten, or they'd want to do their own thing and be their own brand in the Big Ten? What do you think?
I think the football side, if you're just talking about football and not the university side, I would say Big Ten just because the competition, the Big Ten, I mean, you're bringing in Oregon, all these teams, Washington, there's new teams in there. You already have Ohio State and Michigan. So from a football standpoint, sorry, SEC fans, but there are some really good teams in that Big Ten when it comes to Big Ten football. So from a football perspective, I think it would benefit them more as far as just I think if I was guessing, I think preference would be that. Now, if you're dealing with the university side, then overall, yeah, geographically it's better. You play the ridiculous schedule you would play at Doak every year. Home is going to be a lot more teams as far as that are going to move the needle, as the kids like to say. As far as excitement, but overall, I think from a football standpoint, I don't think you can go wrong with either choice. I just think there's a bigger boom because of the SEC's draw, what they do.
So if let's just say that Florida State did decide to go to the Big Ten, that's where they announced Michael. In terms of negative recruiting against Florida State, does it stop because they get into a power league? Is it just over, even though it's not the SEC? If they're talking to kids in the state of Florida, they got a kid coming in from Birmingham or where, in the southern footprint. Is it cool? Everything is done. You don't have to hear about this because you're out of the ACC.
I think they'll still try to sell the just means more crap that they'll usually pull out, but I don't think it's going to fly with a lot of kids. It's certainly not flying now. Ohio State and Michigan have no problem recruiting kids from the South. We saw that with Zion Grady. He's from Alabama. So, they're having no trouble. I don't think when I look at prestige of what FSU is a university and now with a program trending in the right direction, there's not much difference between them and what product wise that Ohio State's doing. Ohio State's certainly compiling talent, more talent, but there's nothing they can sell more than what FSU is. FSU is a valued brand. They just are. I think the biggest question is if they went to the Big Ten or the SEC, do you still play Miami? Because I don't see a benefit for FSU to play a school like Miami. Sorry if there's cane moles that are hanging around, but you don't have the value that what FSU has. You don't have the value of what Florida has because Florida's in the SEC. Florida is a proven product. I'm curious to see what FSU does with that series because I look at like now when Miami plays FSU, it's more like that's their Super Bowl. They want to beat FSU. That would make their season. Whereas FSU, that's a big game. It's a big rivalry game, but it's not like the end all for FSU.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the value part is just higher with schools like FSU in Florida.
We're here on the Monday Smash with senior recruiting analyst. He wears the portal cap too, but it's not that season. It's recruiting season right now.
For now.
This program is presented by State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. We're going to take your questions in just a couple of moments. And I know they're going to be about specifics, folks. I see one from Caleb in there about what's about to happen these next 10 days or these next 14 days. And spoiler a lot, but we'll have Michael explain all that. For a moment, Michael, let's pull back, look at the 2025 class, see the forest instead of the trees.
Yeah.
What position group or groups do you think Florida State has done a really good job of targeting? I can guess one, but if you were trying to grade Florida State's efforts on the trail and you say they're killing it here, where would here be on the map?
Oh, it'd have to be offensive line for me to start with. I mean, you already have five-star Solomon Thomas. I think there's several guys you look for, including the guy that visited this weekend and Josh Petty, another 5-star. You get 2 5-stars in a class. I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, there's not much group that can really probably compete with that. I don't know if there's other positions where there's multiple 5-stars that you can land that are very likely. Last year I think it was DB where we saw a lot with Surtain and potentially adding some multiple 5-stars, but I think this year for me it's that offensive line. They're really killing it. Nothing. It's not against any of the other positions. Shout out to Odell getting a massive pickup, but Alex with the offensive line recruiting, that's been kind of the story I think of this class so far.
And then opposite side of the coin, Florida State needs to do better where on the map? Where would you point?
Well, they have receivers. They already have I think one in the fold, or if I'm not mistaken, I'm not drawing a blank. I think they have one coming up, or they look good for I think Dalen McCutcheon. I think that's one that I feel like they look good for, and then so that's good. But then what's after that? Like, what do you have? At second and third options of because they want to take like 2 or 3. So if you do get Dalen, who's kind of the second because They're likely not going to get C.J. Wiley. I think he decides tomorrow, and I hear Georgia mostly with that one. Joshua Moore looks like he's trending towards to Florida. So where does it go from there? Do you go back to four-star Kobe Howard, who they're high on, or is there other prospects that they merge? So I want to see more of a board to to hit what you want there. I think every other position I can see a trend to hitting what you want. Linebacker definitely for sure. Tavion Wallace likely to decide in the coming days. I think FSU is a solid spot there. They already have Ethan Pritchard as 4-star, so I think that one looks good. Defensive end, same thing. I think they will get 2 or 3 in that. Same thing so far with defensive tackle. If you could add a Myron Charles, you seem good there. But that receiver position, where's the depth of the board? That where do you go from that point? There's several targets, but I want to see more of guys trending towards FSU outside of a guy like Jalen McCutcheon, because after that it gets kind of squirrely.
Yeah, Florida State. Yeah, with McCutcheon, things are sounding okay, but you're right. On the board right now, 5 players for Florida State. You got Hilson and Thomas.
Yeah,
you said good things about Florida State this weekend in terms of I like what I see. Visits, no, don't need to see anything else. Don't need to go anywhere else.
right.
Wynn's now in the fold. Quarterback Tramell Jones, and then linebacker Ethan Pritchard. So to that end, there's 5 on the board now. Will there be more soon? Caleb James asks on the Monday Smash presented by State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. Does Kevin Wynn's commitment start a domino effect for the rest of this month and next? What do you think, Michael?
I mean, it helps. It's certainly a positive. That's what you want. I said last weekend, I think either I talked with Tom or somebody, that they needed 1 or 2 just to, just get the juices going and just get the momentum cranked up again. And certainly they got that with Kevin. I think more will follow. I think there's several guys that are right on that edge of certainly ones that follow. I already mentioned Tavion. Gregory Zay Thomas is another one, a 4-star DB. I think they really are in strong position for. So there's several. There's probably like 7 to 9 guys that visited this weekend, that either visited this weekend or visited previously, that FSU's kind of waiting on and then to see. And so certainly I think it does create a domino effect. Might create a domino effect of maybe that last guy, because they're only seemingly taking 2 defensive tackles. So maybe it speeds up Myron Charles and says, hey, you know what? Let me jump on board and get that done. And then if you want to take a third, you can, but it puts you in a good spot where you've met what you kind of had planned you to get in this class. But it definitely helps you pick up steam. I don't think the domino effect works so much as like just commits overall, um, like it does with quarterbacks. Where one starts falling, the other one start falling, and stuff like that. But I think it does help build momentum and excitement. And certainly, we know a lot of decisions are coming up, either end of June or early July. So it definitely helps your momentum and excitement.
Carol wants to know, and she's asking about percentages. So I'll set it in a second. I'll set the percentage.
Okay.
Of transfer portal to high school recruits, Michael, do you predict for this coming cycle in 2025? So I'll just say, I'll throw out a number. Let's say they bring in 30 new kids,
Okay.
or 25. You could pick one, 25 or 30 kids total. How many from the portal? How many from high school do you think that they would get to that number with?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to gauge like the total number for high school. I would say 22 maybe. 23, 22, 23, and then portal. I think it'll be similar to what we've seen before, 7, 8. It just depends on what the holes are. Carol, it's hard to picture and pinpoint the exact, because FSU doesn't recruit the portal like other schools do, where they only really push for it if there's a hole there. If there's a one where, unless it's a really elite guy where they, what, we got to have that guy. He dramatically changes our roster, what he looked like. And in the day, I tell this all the time, Tom. It's like, it's about the roster. When that we can talk about high school portal, in the end of the day, it's about what is on that roster and who the best guy is on that roster and who the best players are and who's going to help you. So whether that's a few more than we expect portal guys, or a few less high school guys, that's what it is. But overall, I think FSU views this as players. So that's kind of my guess right now, as far as that number. But no, I have a percentage, but that's kind of where I think it's at going into the season.
Makes sense. Lee wants to know, and I asked for some specificity here, but I'm going to assume he's talking about maybe Gainesville's head coach. Michael, Tom, does competing coaches on the hot seat have any impact on FSU's recruiting? We often hear about that, Michael. We heard about it when Mike Norvell's tenure was on shaky ground and how other universities were going after him. Florida's schedule, we all see it. We know what record they're coming off of.
Yeah.
Not an easy 12-game slate for Florida. What do you think about the impact of hot seat status?
Hot seat status doesn't start until the game start, Lee. So yeah, there's talk and all that stuff, but it's mainly talk. You can decipher that stuff. You can break it down. Coaches, when they have kids on campus, they can kind of ease their minds. But then once the game starts, reality's there. That's when you start where I do think it'll impact a hot seat. It will. If Florida somehow loses to Miami, which I don't expect, then yeah, it's going to affect Florida. Same thing with Miami. They lose that game. Miami doesn't have a lot of tough games to lean on. Say, hey, we beat this team, we beat this team, and there's a lot of possibilities of games that they should win. That if they don't, it's going to negatively affect recruiting. So I think the hot seat really cranks up. Once we get into the game, especially that I'd circle that Florida Miami game. I didn't want to give the secret out, but I'm probably going to be at that game, so I'm going to go. I just want to see, I just kind of want to watch it from a regular standpoint, but I'm just interested to see what it looks like. Kind of almost a scouting of
Yep.
future opponents for FSU, but overall, I think that game has a dramatic impact on recruiting for I think all three schools. Not even though FSU's not playing, it still has an impact. Florida wins that game. You have Tennessee, Kentucky coming up, early parts of the year. It kind of sets you up to maybe, do some things, but if they lose, it's going to be disastrous. I'm not going to say Billy Napier should already get his pink papers ready if they lose that game, but the trends are starting, and it would be tough for me to see him surviving that. And same thing with, Cristobal loses that game, the chirps are going to start, and then, their first home game, if they lose that, it could crank up. So it does have effect on a lot of different things in recruiting, but don't think it'll start, Lee, until the season starts.
I hope, Michael, you see a 4-2 ball game when you go the finals.
There you
4-2. It's just a beautiful car wreck to watch. And why is that one guy cheering after every play? Wait a minute, that's Michael Langston.
What's he doing here?
What's he doing here? Let's see. Greg asks in the chat, with the commitment of a 2026 quarterback, does that hurt Florida State's current situation with Tramell Jones? Do you think it has any impact on the 25 quarterback commit?
Not really. I don't see it impacting the situation at all. I mean, that's been very set in stone. Mike's very clear. Like even with Tramell, when he's in there, like, look, we're going to take a 2026 quarterback. Certainly got one. And by the way, great segue. I just finished a Q&A with by the way, his name is I got this from a very reliable source. It's Brady Smigel. Not how it looks. It's like some people think it's either Smeagol or Smigel, but it's actually Smigel. So that's how you pronounce it. If people that are wondering, I got that for somebody that I think it would know. So I'll just put it that way. And but a great ad, by the way. I think that's kind of lost in the weekend. Tom is that pickup with Brady, and so I don't think it affects him, but I think it just continues to make your quarterback room special. I think this is one of the best I've seen the FSU quarterback room look when you think about all the talent that's in there. You add that with Tramell and certainly Brady. I think it's a lot of great options, and I finally feel like majority just off my all of them fit kind of what Mike's looking for in the offense.
Sounds like a sick hair product, says Get Down or Lay Down. That's probably the better for Brady Smigel. That's probably the better thing than getting Lord of the Rings memes with Smeagol.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's not a character that you want to have on cardboard cutouts in the stands. I don't think you want a bunch of Smeagol. Any final questions for Michael Langston? Make sure to file those in here on the Warchant TV. We're going to be joined by Matt LaSerre, one of the Swiss Army knives of what we do here at Warchant TV. You'll find Matt on top 40 videos, on recruiting videos, and everything in between. So we're going to pivot to him in just a few minutes. Garrett PCL wants to know, Michael, what would you say? He's looking for help, Michael. What would you say to jaded FSU fans who don't get excited about a kid who commits and still has 2 years of high school left? I'll even say, let's just say about Wynn or about Solomon Thomas saying, I'm a Nole. and Javion Hilson saying, I'm shutting it down. What would you say to those fans who are like, I've been hurt before?
I would say, I feel you. I understand your feeling. If I were going through it like as an FSU fan, I would probably feel a similar way because of what happened with KJ Bolden last year. That has burned a lot of people. Where you go through the whole year, he's saying solid, I'm solid, I'm solid, I'm solid, and then next thing you know, he flips to Georgia on signing day. So I feel you. I would just, I've said this on the board when Brady committed, celebrate the great moments of what you're going through at that time. Celebrate the fact that your roster looks good. Celebrate that they're committed right now. I mean, you don't have to put a lot of emotional input into it, but and know what staff that you have in control. If you weren't sold on the staff, then I would be concerned. But I don't think you should be concerned with the staff they have in place. Extremely organized group, extremely aggressive group. They do a great job when the kids are on campus. They have all the blueprints that you look for from FSU fans of the type of kids they're getting. So I think overall, celebrate the moments that you're in. Don't worry about so much of what's down the line. Deal with that when you get to that point. But right now, celebrate where we're in. Don't look at the future, because you look at the future, it'll just give you ulcers. Don't look at stuff that has no control. You can't control any of that stuff. You can't control if a kid flips. Uh, Trust what your coaching staff that you're sold on, that you guys pay your hard money to go see and watch and support. Trust what they're doing, and if you trust them, it shouldn't be a problem. But if you don't, then I guess some people can panic and worry about it. But as I said before, I feel you guys. I understand the investment inside of recruiting. That a lot for some people, it's not till the fall, and that's totally fine. But for those that are looking for a pep, I would just say celebrate the great moments you're doing. You have 4 commits already. Obviously, I think that's going to blow up. Your 4 commits are some of the highest average rating guys if you look at it, cost top to bottom. So top to bottom in that 4 group they have already. Now 5. I shouldn't say 4. I keep forgetting. Adding Kevin Wynn, but I think celebrate just what you have and what they're going to have, Tom, because I believe it's certainly a chance to still get, legitimately. I feel confident it will be a top 10 high school class, and then certainly I think there's a really high chance that you see a strong portal recruiting again this year. And I get the question all the time about the portal. Is like, what is it? Is it good? Is it bad? It's like, look at the hit rate of what FSU does as far as development and product out of every transfer they get. I think there was something on the draft where they had 3 of the top 4 FSU came drafted in the first 3 rounds. So it's what you do when they're there. And I don't think anybody can touch what the hit rate FSU's is. And so that's kind of, if you're looking for the portal and why it's so important, look at no farther than the examples of what FSU shown on the field. But I think overall, don't put too much into recruiting and don't too much out of it. Be happy and celebrate the ones that you do have, and focus on the season. That's the best way I can do it, because I can't make you feel a certain way. Just like I can't go on the board and say, hey, you shouldn't panic about this guy. I can't make you do that. All I can do is share what's going on, what's going on recruiting. But I can say this: I know the staff that's recruiting them. I know these guys. I trust what they do as far as the product they're sending out, and I think overall, I think FSU fans should be very excited about what they have so far.
My number one rule for the boards would be if you write an article or an insider report, Michael, that says here are 20 players that are critical to Florida State, can the first comment on the thread not be, what about player 21? Can it be about the players?
Now I will add that there's certain guys that I feel like are must adds. I like Tavion Wallace. I think that's a must win recruitment. There's several recruitments in there I think are must win, but I think, Tom, people put too much emphasis on these summer commits that they're just everything. There's going to be kids that maybe FSU they change their mind, but there's also going to be kids that they get with the season of what FSU I think will do. There'll be a lot of flips too. That FSU will be able to either flip them or change their mind about FSU. So overall, I just think it's going to be a really good situation for FSU, and I think it's going to be a solid year.
All right, Michael, last question for tonight. This is kind of a procedural one, pretty quick. Hawaii wants to know about Smigel. Reclassification of 2025. Is that in the cards, or what do you have you heard?
I talked to him for like 10 or 15 minutes, and that didn't seem like it was something that's brought up. I wouldn't say it can't happen, and I won't say um, high note that it didn't pop in my head that certainly that could happen, but I have not heard anything reclassification.
Okay. Michael, thank you very much. Any teasing that you wish to do? Further intel coming from this weekend, or anything specific that you want to promote before you leave for tonight?
I mean, we'll have a bunch of stuff. I still have to work on a few more articles. I've really highlighted the Q&A that I'm going to have with the new edition, the future Nole. But I'll have that going up. Probably have a 10 to watch that I might do, and then we're just going to wait for some of these summer commitments. I think there's going to be some good news on the way, continuing to come through to the month of July and even late June. So I think just stay tuned to Warchant. I think your business, as they say, is going to pick up. And as I said, when Wynn committed, that's like, oh, so it begins. Yeah, so it begins. So that's kind of my final thought on that. And by the way, big shout out to not only the guy to my left, guys. Tom did a lot of work. Tom's like not telling you guys. Tom helped us out a lot with all the video. But shout out to Greg, Ben Spicer, and certainly Matt that you're about to bring on. Those guys did a phenomenal job this weekend.
Michael, thank you for the phenomenal job this weekend. I know it was busy and it was kind of unprecedented in a way. I hope we have more weekends where there are this many offensive linemen on campus of the 4 and 5-star variety. That will never get old, I promise you. And it seems like, judging by the numbers on the channel, on the site, people love it when trench monsters make their way to campus. So that's a message out there to Coach Norvell, everybody else. You want more interest in recruiting around the program, go get you some big hog mollies and trench monsters, and people will be back. Thanks, Michael. Hope you have a good night.
You too, bud.
All right, we're back in 15 seconds with Matt LaSerre.
Contact Russ Voris for an auto quote today.
Alrighty, he's had a lot of work to do as well. Matt LaSerre was over in College Town yesterday, bounced back to the Moore Center to get interviews from the players. I'm sure thousands of words deep into writing from the weekend recaps, and also stories like the Wynn commitment. Matt is a very busy man, and he makes time for us tonight on the Monday Smash presented by State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. Good evening, Matt. How are you? You're muted is how you are. Hang on 1 second. You need to unmute yourself.
My bad.
You're all good,
man.
Good. All right. I like how you protect yourself so you don't give away any trade secrets behind the scenes. I want to start talking quarterback with you tonight, Matt, and I want to talk about Tramell Jones because Florida State's 2025 commitment made the Elite 11. The final listing of the Elite 11, he had a good showing out there. Also, there were journal pieces on warchant.com where you got with him and you talked with him to be able to document exactly how his week went. What was that experience like? I know obviously got to talk to him again this weekend for the visit. He was all over the place, but tell me a little bit about Tramell, that experience of the Elite 11, and your takeaways.
Yeah, first off, my takeaway was it was better talking to him after day 3 than during. It kind of felt like there was a lot of, I guess, weight lifted off his shoulders after the event actually ended. It just like he even told me, he was like, yeah, I didn't get much to smile about during it, but now that it's done, like he felt great about it. Obviously, he did make the Elite 11 list. We were kind of waiting on it. And for those people who get confused of like, well, we saw him at 5 on one place, we saw him at 1 at another place. Each company gets to go out there and they make their own top performers and rank them themselves. But really, the only list that matters is the actual Elite 11 list that comes out. And that didn't come out until Friday, when actually he was already on campus. I think the picture I took of him when he was walking in or walking through was when he was tweeting that he got it. So it gets confusing, but I think he had a great time at it. He seemed to learn a lot. He was roommates with Luke Nickel, the Miami commit, but he told me he got along with guys like Keelan Russell, who actually won the MVP, and all the guys you were hearing the most about. He seemed to kind of be in that group.
How would you categorize Tramell as a recruit, like the type of guy he is? Some quarterbacks are all over social. Some quarterbacks are quiet, lead by example. What's his place in this class as he tries to lead the 2025 class and rack up some more commitments? And then the obvious question that comes after that, Matt, he did not want to answer the straightforward question yesterday. are you locked in with Florida State? He said, in about a week, I will reveal it. I already know my answer. Florida's been in the running for his services, even though he is committed to Florida State. So what kind of recruit is he within the class? And then what do you think about what's to come in the next week?
So first off, when the 25 class first got into like the spotlight, you started looking, because you look at Luke last cycle where it's like Luke was all over the place, right? Luke was driving to commitment ceremonies. He was all over social media saying stuff. Him and Cam Davis had a competition of who could get the most commits. You quickly realize that's not the way Tramell is. He's more of a, as you said, quiet, lead by example. As you get to know him, he's really talkative, good kid, fun to be around. But he's one of those that's more reserved at first when you talk to him. And I think that kind of plays into how he recruits guys, right? Like as he, maybe at first he didn't talk to him as much, but maybe now that he knows this guy's more of a target, he starts talking to you more kind of thing. That's the kind of vibe I get. And we did hear he did a lot of recruiting this weekend. So I think that plays well into the, he's going to lock it down soon. That's what at least we think is going to happen. We'll see in the next week, I guess, but I do think he will shut it down. Even when I was talking to him all week through the Elite 11, at one point, a coach was asking him, like, wait, where are you going again? And he said Florida State. And when he said that to me, you could tell he kind of lit up about it. Like he was like, yeah, the coach was like, Coach Norvell and Tokar's got something cooking down there. And he said that was, when I told you he didn't smile a whole lot, he told me that was one of the few times he smiled all week. So I think that kind of tells you that he's very locked into Florida State. You just need him to make it official within the next week.
So let me ask you an impossible follow-up question. Why is it even a talking point if he's actively recruiting kids this weekend? I mean, maybe I'm making your point for you, but it just, for those of us, maybe I'm aging out into this other stratosphere of the demographic, Matt. But if you're committed, why do we need these extra layers of am I locked in or am I not? Well, how do you make sense of all that?
I'll go back to Charles Lester on signing day this past year, where he tweeted he wasn't signing that day, and then Florida State puts up a graphic saying he signed. It's all about the drama. The kids want to build it up. Maybe it's an extra NIL check. Maybe it's not. It's all about the drama.
Fair enough. Maybe it's about the extra NIL check. I like that. Let's see. Behind the scenes, let me get a couple of questions that we asked Michael. I want to get your take on a couple of them. Caleb James asked about Kevin Wynn, and you were there yesterday. Yeah. I believe you asked him the question. What's your timeline? Was that you asked the question? And
yeah, so I'll give I'll tell the story of like what happened. So he what they do is, so they have breakfast at Madso, and then sometimes they'll walk him into the elevator right next to it. If you're a college kid, you know it as the recess table elevator, but there's also an experience above there where it's like they plant the spear, there's a little screen around you. It's this whole cool. They also bring boosters up there for season tickets and all that kind of stuff. So they brought him up there, and we see him come down. We'd already seen him go to Moore, so we thought that, all right, we're going to have to interview him because clearly he's back here and he's going to leave from here. So he comes down and he sees defensive coordinator Adam Fuller, and he starts walking up to Adam Fuller and just does the chop. And then everyone starts cheering and yelling. They start hugging. So we're like, did he commit? Like, we don't want, like, it looks pretty obvious like he committed, but we don't want to like say anything for sure. And I don't like asking the question straight up, did you commit? So I did the decision timeline. He was like, oh yeah, I just did. So it was a whole thing.
Yeah, I remember that as we made sure, obviously, that you want the kid to be able to say it loud and proud on his terms and his time. So that's exactly what happened. About 30 hours later, he was able to make that announcement. What do you make of Kevin, having talked to him and having followed the recruitment? What did Florida State just get in this 4-star defensive lineman out of Greene County, who's 325 pounds? What do you make of this player?
Yes, I mean, Florida State's been a lot of firsts in this recruitment. He was the first offer. It was the first college football game he went to, first school his mom went to. Like, I think every single first on his list during his recruitment process, Florida State checked that box. I remember at the beginning of this past season, he visited 2 times early. I think it was one big game and one not really big game. I forget what games it were. But I remember someone walked past me and goes, after he'd already gotten there, and goes, have you seen his film? It's amazing. So then the next night I checked it out. He was 25 class. We were focused on 24 at the time. So I hadn't looked at it a whole lot. So I look at it. I'm like, wow, that actually it's fun to watch. Really, really good. I mean, I think there's one clip where he literally jumps over a kid, like bunny hops over him and jumps over him into the backfield. It's very hard to stop, at least at that high school level. But yeah, he visited twice in a row during the season, and Florida State kind of kept the momentum going. He visited in January, then took the official, and obviously locked it up there. Recently, and I'm sure Michael already talked about this, Georgia was kind of surging there, But what helped out Florida State was that you had guys like Justice Terry and Isaiah Gibson both decommit from USC, who are both already trending to Georgia. And that kind of shifted the focus for Georgia to where they were now going to push over those guys. And it gave Florida State the full green light of we can go full out for him and probably try to lock up this commitment.
All right. Now, do you think it starts a domino effect? Obviously, there's a ton of kids who were here on campus this weekend, upwards of 20, and you're hearing June 25th, June 26th, July 4th weekend. A lot of commitments coming up in the next couple of weeks, including Florida State, where Florida State is a finalist in the final, 2, 4, 5. Do you think this is a domino effect in the next couple of weeks for Florida State to get off of that number? 5 recruits now committed in the 25 class.
I wouldn't call it a domino effect because we've always known all these players are coming and all these commitments are going to be in July. I mean, we were on a few months ago, like when are they going to come? I mean, it took January to now. It took 5-6 months to finally get another one. But I think you can call it a domino effect because it'll be the first one and you're going to start getting a lot. Like we said, just from this past weekend alone, there's probably going to be up to 10. And then those all start with Shamar Arnock's commits on Wednesday, CJ Wiley Tuesday. Like we don't know where they're going yet, but those are ones that you're looking at. Greg Zay Thomas at the end of the week, which I think is out of those 3 is probably your biggest possibility. He's been training to FSU for a long time now. I think I put that pick back in March or February, one of the two. So yeah, you can call it a domino effect. I think you're going to have to wait a little bit. You'll get every few days or every week or so.
So moving forward, here's a question from R. Wilmer that we did not get to. It's for Mike, but man, you're covering this class as much as anybody. How do you feel about the running back room right now? Running back recruiting board. Obviously, Florida State brings in 2 studs last year. They go into the transfer portal and they bring in a guy like Jalen Lucas. But what about 25?
Yeah, so I think Byron Lewis, you're in a great spot for. We haven't talked to him yet, but he was also on that big visit this past weekend. They've been in a good spot for him for a while now. And he was one that FSU wasn't on late, but he kind of didn't really visit FSU as much until all those American Heritage guys started coming to FSU through the portal, through Pat Surtain, and all that kind of stuff. So now he's giving FSU a serious look, and FSU's in a really good spot. Like if I were to pick a school right now where he would go, I would say Byron Lewis is probably going to FSU. And then you look at Usman Kroma, who's also really good. Florida State has gone up and down in that recruitment. Like it's always been, I think if you look at the RPM right now, they are still trending technically. But Georgia came in, and Georgia was pretty much trending for a little bit. Auburn's coming in. A big thing for Florida State there is Todd Robinson, athlete out of Valdosta, who actually plays quarterback, but most people are recruiting as a running back. Florida State was recruiting him, but he committed to Georgia and then locked it down very fast. That's one where, okay, well, now Georgia has another running back there. Kroma could be looking at FSU harder now because of that. And I think that made FSU go back up in trending for him. When you look at it, I think that put Georgia back down on his list and Florida State up, probably looking more at Florida State Auburn there now. Not really sure where that could go, but if you keep pushing for him, I think you have a pretty good shot.
A question from Jacob now. This is a big personality he's asking about, Ladarian Clardy. It reminds me just a little bit of Greg Reed, the charisma that he has in some of the interviews that I've seen. How are you feeling about him, and have you heard anything about his Ole Miss visit as of yet?
The only thing I've heard out of the Ole Miss visit was a video I saw with Lane Kiffin in his car. That's about it. Obviously it's been a busy weekend. We haven't been able to do as much checking. As of now, still feel really good about that. Obviously, he's a Pensacola kid, not far. I mean, there's a Steve Wiltfong pick in him for Florida State. I don't know how you don't feel good about a Steve Wiltfong pick, especially when it's for your school. So I think Florida State is still trending very good there. I like where they stand. I'll have to do some checking about the Ole Miss visit. Again, it probably ended yesterday. After having 20 kids, I wanted to slow down a little bit. But, I still feel good about Florida State there.
It's amazing how magically a couple of months ago we could just start saying the name Steve Wiltfong out of nowhere. It's wonderful how that works. Old Ray Wilmer wants to know, who was your favorite interview this weekend? Who did you enjoy talking to?
Well, Kevin Wynn, obviously, because he committed. So that's like an easy answer. I wasn't there for the Josh Petty interview. Dalen McCutcheon, I've been pretty vocal that he's my favorite recruit in the class, and I'm a little biased there because he's from right by me. He doesn't say a whole lot of big things. I kind of like that. He's very close knit. His answer has always been like all schools are tied. And I don't really know who a favorite would be. Solomon Thomas was obviously good. I don't think I had a favorite. If I was there for the Josh Petty interview, it would probably be Petty, but I have to go with Wynn because that was the guy I interviewed and he committed.
So Solomon, were you there for his interview?
Yes, I was.
What did you make of that? I mean, it sounded like he got a pretty direct question about, what's next, and he's like, "There's nothing left to see. I'm a Nole." Like, how did it feel as he said it? And do you think that he was more like Hilson or not like Hilson in terms of just saying, "All right, no mas, I'm done. I'm done with the process"?
I think he's done, to be honest with you. I think he's just tired of the recruiting process in general. It takes a toll on these kids. I mean, every weekend you're traveling, especially in the month of June, you're traveling to official visits every weekend. You're not really doing much other than like on those official visits. It's fun, but you eat a lot. You're getting out of football shape. Like, to me, it came off. The reason why the tone was different from Javion is I think he was just tired. Again, last official visit, last weekend, wanting to get home. I still think it came off the same, and I really think it more came off of like, yeah, I'm done with this. I'm good with Florida State. I don't want to do anything else.
It seemed like that to me too, because his body language, he's even like waving off the question.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm good here. So again, that obviously Florida State is in a really good position to bring home an excellent offensive line class. I'll pivot to that before we get to Lee's next question. Josh Petty, Peyton Joseph, Ty Haywood, take it in whatever direction you want, whatever order you want to go. How do you feel about FSU's chances for those players?
I mean, out of the names you mentioned, I think Ty Haywood's the one I feel the worst about. Mm-hmm. The rest of them I feel pretty good. Like Josh Petty, FSU has a really good shot at. I mean, his sister is going to attend Florida State as a freshman this next year, and I think that's big to him. They're very close. Who else? Ty Haywood again. I think that's trending towards Alabama right now. Mm-hmm. I wasn't expecting FSU to be in the top 3. I thought FSU had like an outside shot. I didn't expect them to be that close as where they are. I mean, this was the second time he visited. But then you look at Ty Haywood's recruitment, and he doesn't visit places very often. He's one of those where it's been more of an old school recruitment where he's not going everywhere. There's so many. Who's another one? Sorry,
so Peyton Joseph. It's a strange one because you see the finalist list, and you'd think it's a 4-star kid, highly sought after. You'd think you'd see Power 2 institution, if I might, robbed from the ACC like everybody else does. You see Memphis next to Florida State's name. Fascinating development there as the 2 finalists for Peyton Joseph.
Yeah, so Memphis was always in it for him. He said that the last time he was here. But again, literally the last time he was here, he stayed with his cousin TJ Ferguson all week for spring break. So, like, he's been here a lot. He has the family connections. I think FSU gets that one, and I think it's fairly easily. Something I realized with Memphis, and I thought about it because you also had Antoine Hill, who's a 4-star quarterback who was between UF and Memphis. From the same high school as Peyton Joseph. Maybe they just like that high school. But I remembered, didn't FedEx sign some big deal with Memphis because they're there? Probably has some NIL stuff. So yes. I would imagine that's a big part of it. I remembered that as we were like Memphis, like doing this, going over the same thing you just did of like, really?
As
Memphis?
I understand it, for a group of 5 institution, Memphis is throwing their weight around as much as they possibly can to be relevant. Good for them. That's that's what anybody would do in that situation. You could say Florida State is somewhere closer to maybe Memphis existence than Florida's or LSU's, especially as we project further down the line. Lee wants to know about Darkhorse candidates that could ultimately commit to FSU. I'm not asking you to call your shot for a summer commitment per se, but maybe one that is not connected to Florida State as a front runner right now, but you'd love to see what happens in the fall if FSU posts the wins and the hype machine keeps rolling. Who do you think?
Let's go Khalil Lockett, 5-star wide receiver. Because he's always loved Florida State. Every single time you ask him about Florida State, he always says how much he loved the visit. Even I think when Aslan talked to him in Nashville, Aslan used the word like he gushed about that visit. Another kid who's only been on campus 2 times, but every single time he seems to make a huge impression on him. He kind of, this past time when he was here a few weeks ago, you can tell he's kind of getting into that decision mode where he's trying not to give out as much. Like he's thinking about his answers a lot more just because he doesn't want to like really tell you where everything's at. But I do think that's one Florida State could surprise people in with the push. He did just visit Texas this weekend, so that's a hard hump to get over. If you were that last visit, you're feeling a lot better, especially if that last visit was anyone but Texas.
Yeah, they're a machine right now on the trail, right? Like, if you had to rate the top 2 or 3 teams that you hear about the most, maybe not even like directly in competition with Florida State, but just teams that are doing it very, very well and efficiently. Texas, I imagine, is one of those 3. Who would be the others?
I think it'd be Texas and Alabama because Texas, you got the Lambos out. They're doing their big money Texas thing. Alabama, I mean, if you look at the offensive linemen they've brought in recently and got commits wise, it's very impressive. Very impressive.
And that's a recent development, right? Because DeBoer wasn't exactly off and running in the very beginning.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So last couple of questions here on Monday Smash for Matt LaSerre, staff writer here at warchant.com, covers everything, but lately has been focused very much on the recruiting world. It's one of your passions, Matt. I asked Michael this question earlier. If you're taking the forest for the trees view, you're looking at the 2025 class. I know there's only 5 commits, but just approach and potential results. Where do you think Florida State has nailed it? If you could pick a position, where do you think they've nailed it?
Right now, and I know you just lost on Zion Grady today, so this might be a little bit, not as much, but I think you have to go with edge rusher, D-line, because that is one that you haven't really looked at high school recruiting yet, or so far through Norvell's tenure, that you're like, that position they've been really good on. They always get them. It's always the portal guys, your Jermaine Johnson, Jared Verse. Now you're seeing them get the number 1 edge player in the country, or one of the best edge players in the country with Javion Hilson. And you have Zion Grady, who FSU was leading for until that Ohio State visit. Jalen Wiggins, who was just on campus, who's a Florida commit, who I personally don't think that's a very strong commitment, but it could go either way. You have, who else? Nick Clayton was there, but at last second, he wasn't a take. You had, who else was Jared Smith, the top 100 guy who's an edge rusher who was on campus, who he's very hard to read. That recruitment could go anywhere, in my opinion, because he says the same things every single time he's on campus. But something that stood out to me is Wynn, because everyone expected Nick Clayton to commit to FSU going into his decision on Saturday, and last second kind of switched up. In my mind, that means someone had to say yes for him to not be a take at the last second. That is my opinion on that. Don't know that for sure, but just like dominoes and linking things in your head, to me, that means someone had to say yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Opposite side of the coin, where do you think that they really need to do better and need to save themselves if they can over the next few months and over the fall?
I'll go to the old Jeff Cameron linebackers.
Really? I find that fascinating. Okay, go ahead. Tell me why.
Well, it's not like in the past, again, it kind of, I guess, goes more with the last question. They've done a lot better this cycle. But Tavion Wallace, in my opinion, is it might be the biggest must-get recruitment of Norvell's career at Florida State so far, just because of the way they've done it. You were in on him early. You were always there for him. He's made you the leader for however many months. In Nashville, he said it again to Aslan. You've been in that recruitment for so long that if you miss out on him and something goes wrong, something went very, very wrong. And like to the point where someone might need to be fired wrong. Like that's my opinion on the linebackers and how it really hasn't gone well. Again, it's trending much better. And I do think they'll get Wallace. And I think Wallace is very high on Florida State. But that might be the biggest must get for Norvell so far at FSU.
Any shot with Gavin Nix? I love his interviews. That doesn't mean a lick about how he can play. He's at IMG. He's a highly rated player. I'm sure he's good at just under 6 feet tall. Man, that seems like somebody who fits this program to a T in the way he thinks about the game and working. What's your take on? I know he grew up a Florida State fan. What's your take on him?
I think you're at a 50-50 spot there. I think it also depends on what other linebackers come in and what other classes you're looking at. Again, like you say, very good kid. Even from texting with him to know when he's arriving on campus and stuff like that. He's always like, yes, sir, I'll be here at this time, or I've already been here, blah, blah, blah. Really good kid to deal with. He would fit this program to a T 100%. I just don't know I think it's Miami right now is where I would lean, just knowing off that. He also hasn't visited a whole lot. He visited once. I forget when, but I remember him visiting once, I want to say for a junior day in January. And then he was supposed to be back again at one point, but that visit got canceled until the official. So the only thing that kind of makes me weary about that is he's only visited twice.
Fair enough. Last question tonight here on the Monday Smash presented by State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. Then I'll have Matt promote what's coming up next, the things you can find from him on warchant.com. French Fries wants to know, is that like sliced bread? What actually happens on an official visit? So what do the kids go through when they're in town for an OV?
So this is just from seeing stuff on social media. I think obviously you arrive, or actually no, most people get to the hotel the night before on Thursday. You go, you have breakfast in the morning. I think the place has been Yvonne Adams from the videos I've seen. So you get that rooftop view of Tallahassee, and then you go to the facilities. I don't know if at this point it's like a campus tour or it's like you do the cooking competition. That's around that time. Then you do meetings. The first night at the end of the night is photo shoots. And then you go off with your player hosts, I think. Second day, I'm not exactly sure. I think it's a lot of meetings. I know they've played laser tag. I would think second day is more meetings like with your position coach and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then obviously the last day is wake up, breakfast, meet with Norvell, leave, and then do that little experience thing I was talking about earlier in between. Is like the general timeline or itinerary.
It seems like they don't meet with Mike Norvell outside of maybe a photo shoot until the very end. Right? Like you see the photos, and obviously those take place at night, and they make their way into the kids, IGs and their Twitter profiles. Just from what you've seen, I know he'll walk out to the parking lot or downstairs more and greet a lot of kids as they come in. But is it more like you build to the crescendo and you really don't talk one-on-one with Mike until the very end? Is that how they structure it?
For the most part, I think so. This weekend, because there's so many kids, it's a little different. Like you'll put some more one-on-one meetings with them Friday, Saturday, and then probably the more important one Sunday, because you can't meet with 20 kids in one day, or else even for me as my job, I would be out there till 5, 6, 7 after getting there at 9 a.m. So I'm glad he didn't meet with all 20 kids in one day. But other than that, yeah, it's kind of, it leads up to that's your final thing, and that's your go-to, and your message could be anything from "we need you." That kind of shows where the push is, right? That's the priority. That's where you really get to see what priority and what the push is going to be like.
Let's see. Max wants to weigh in. We're with Coach Norvell a lot, says Max Buchanan. So there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Max.
Hey, Max hasn't committed yet. We don't know where he's going. I think he just came off a visit to Penn State, I want to say.
Well, thanks for tuning in, Matt. That seems like a good sign. In case you want to put something in the chat, letting us know what's going on, feel free. Let's see. I do want to ask one more. Get down or lay down. The kids psyched about the turquoise /N7 uniforms. Seems like in the photo shoots that those things.
It does seem like it. It does seem like it. I don't know your take on them. I'm mixed. I'm mixed on them. I'm not like full go on wearing them during a game, but I understand the color and I understand the reason for it. I'm just not full in on it. I like it for basketball. For football,
I've got a simple take on it. How about we use the Seminole tribe of Florida's colors and not a Nike-made product that represents all tribes across the country? If you're going to do it freaking right and get with the tribe and get on a design and color scheme that they are all about. That's how I would do it. But no matter. That's just a mini rant. Your final take on wrapping up the weekend and or promoting what's to come in terms of your coverage, Matt. How do you put a bow around this thing?
Well, this next week, I'm just getting geared up for all the commits that are about to come in. I don't know. There's no really like special things coming up right now. Something I do want to do is with the new 26 quarterback Brady in the fold. I kind of want to reach out to a bunch of 2026 receivers and see, like, does this change your view on FSU? Like, does it make it more attractive for you now that you have a top 5 quarterback in the country there in your class? So that's something I've been planning on doing to look out for. Other than that, it's just these dominoes falling and getting more kids in this class and board posts with film and getting everything ready.
All right. Now I've got one request. This was a contribution to the program. This is from Buffalo Tom again. He wants to see Aslan's mustache. So he contributed a few bucks. I believe Director Ben has it behind the scenes. There it is, man. He is getting with the times. Aslan has leaned into that particular era. So good for him. It's on the video right now, recapping the weekend that was with Michael Langston. You can find that on Warchant TV. You can find a breakdown about Kevin Wynn's commitment. You can find all of the player interviews right now from this weekend on Warchant TV. Upwards of 20 separate interviews with visitors on campus. They went through it. And now, Matt, dead period time. Is it?
Yeah, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to the beach. So, yeah, dead period time. Again, this is where all the commits happen, at least for FSU. Last year, this is where it all happened. And something when you guys were kind of talking about it earlier of like what do you tell someone who we don't trust a commitment till signing day kind of thing. Look at the rate of how many kids actually don't flip out of Florida State. Yes, you have the 1 or 2, and they were the biggest ones, of course. So that's what we remember. But the actual rate of kids leaving or flipping out of Florida State is not high at all. And that's the benefit of waiting until July to get all your commits and only having 4 going into, well, I guess 5 now going into July. So that's what happens when you actually wait that long and make sure it's the right fit. Yes, we've had that 1 or 2, and they've been the biggest ones. But in general, if you look at the rate, it's not that high at all.
Beach recommendation from Matt LaSerre. Which one? Where do you like?
So I'm a big North Myrtle, South North Carolina guy.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Oak Island is where I really like it. I went to North Myrtle for spring break already this year. So, and good golf around there too.
That there is. I figured you were going to say 38, but hey,
I went to PCB during the tornado, but that's it. I've never been to Destin. I normally go to West Palm. West Palm is the place I'm normally at when it comes to beach.
I fancy Miramar Beach as well, which basically is the same thing. That is a lovely, lovely area. Also, St. George Island, you can't really beat that. It's supposed to be a hidden place, but it's hidden no longer. That place is always crowded as hell. He's Matt LaSerre, does so much for us here at Warchant.com, Warchant TV. Feel free to throw a thank you, Matt, in the chat because he works very, very hard for us, as does Michael Langston, senior recruiting analyst, who joined me for the beginning of the Monday Smash tonight. Hit the like button underneath this video. Hit subscribe to Warchant TV, or if you're on the podcast again, throw us a 5-star rating. We want to thank Buffalo Tom for a couple of contributions tonight in the chat. Thank you to everybody who provided questions for us. Remember, support those who support us at warchant.com. State Farm agent Russ Voorhis has sponsored the Monday Smash. It has now been a full calendar year of sponsorship here of the Smash by State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. Do us a favor, and please, if you have questions even, get them answered by Russ. He can't wait to answer those questions. And if you tell him you heard about it on Warchant, he'll say, you're about the 150th person to call me who said that. Thank you very much. Let's talk some Florida State football. So for Matt, for Director Ben behind the scenes, and for Michael, my name is Tom. We thank you very much for joining us tonight on the Monday Smash, and we will talk to you right here on Warchant TV next time. Stay tuned. Maybe some commitments coming this week. Good night, everybody.
Hopefully.